Hello and welcome to a reaction to the newest episode of The Road to World War II by Epic History TV. And this time we have 38, I guess probably the final episode of what they call The Road to World War II, as next time is probably World War II itself, because I'm sure they're covering World War II itself, right? I really wonder how many episodes they're gonna do. Yeah, I really hope they go really in depth, but it might take years. Nonetheless, last episode was already a while ago. It was a shorter one, I think it was, 37, it was covering like Japan invasion of China, Spanish Civil War starting, maybe the treaty between Hitler and Stalin. I think that's what it was. Yeah, as always, should be interesting. Let's see if I can learn anything I don't know in all this, which might be a good amount, to be honest. So link for the video in the description, the link to the Epic History channel, my Discord, Streamlabs, Patreon if you want to follow, support me, request reaction. Let's go. There's no question of ever accepting Nazi representative in the Austrian cabinet. An absolute abyss separates Austria from Nazism. Kurt Schuschnigg, Chancellor of Austria. It's a bit late. You can say that, but at this point Nazis have full power. It's way too late. The Anschluss.
In Germany, Hitler's repudiation of the Versailles Peace Treaty and reassertion of German military power and prestige has won him enormous popularity. But some at the top of Germany's military and diplomatic corps are worried by the pace of events. They include War Minister von Blomberg, Head of the Army General von Fritsch, and Foreign Minister von Neurath. All have raised concerns that Hitler's plans for territorial expansion risk another war with Britain and France, a war Germany is not ready to fight. Hitler now gets rid of them all. Von Neurath is replaced with the more hawkish Joachim von Ribbentrop, the former ambassador to Britain and a loyal Nazi.
I remember his name from some kind of pact or treaty. The Ribbentrop something else pact. Maybe it's Ribbentrop-Molotov pact that I'm thinking of.
Von Blomberg and von Fritsch are both linked to sex scandals, real and invented, and forced to resign. The new commander-in-chief of Germany's armed forces, the Wehrmacht, will be Adolf Hitler. The Führer then turns his attention to Austria, the land of his birth, that he believes to be an integral part of the greater German nation. In February, he demands that Austrian Chancellor Kurt Schuschnigg put leading Nazis in charge of his police force and economy. Under extraordinary pressure from his much larger neighbour, Schuschnigg announces a referendum. Austrians will decide for themselves whether they want to become part of Germany, a union known as Anschluss.
I guess it really was the only thing he could do because he couldn't really resist. Yeah.
Hitler is furious. He expects any referendum to be rigged. He orders German military units to the border and demands Schuschnigg's resignation. On the 11th of March, Schuschnigg resigns. German units roll into Austria the next day anyway, on the pretext of restoring law and order. Austrian units are ordered not to resist by the new Chancellor, Arthur Seyss-Inquart, leader of the Austrian Nazi Party. The question of Anschluss has bitterly divided Austria. Many passionately support it.
I was going to say, I actually wonder what the voting would have been like, because Austria is still, like very close to Germany, right? And, I'm sure a lot of people probably, would have voted for yes, right? Looking at what Germany was going through, I mean, from the outside to the normal people, things look good, right? The economy was great. Hitler was selling the country or whatever, right? He was restoring the pride of Germany. And, I feel like potentially people might have voted yes, yeah.
and turn out in their thousands to welcome German troops. Hitler arrives later that day, stopping briefly in his hometown, before making a triumphal entry into Vienna on the 14th of March. Later, a thoroughly rigged Austrian referendum returns a result of 99.7% approval for Anschluss. Away from the celebrations, the Nazis begin rounding up political...
Why do military dictators always do that? Huh? Napoleon at some point, I think when he wanted to be emperor, he did like something similar, right? Huh? Like a rigged referendum where it was 99%. Why are they making it so obvious that it's rigged? Why not just say like, 80% or something? Why go so far to make it so obvious that you're rigging it? I don't know.
Opponents, including ex-Chancellor Schuschnigg, who'll spend the next 7 years in a concentration camp. Viennese troops are targeted and beaten by Austrian Nazis, aided by the German invaders. Several are murdered. Others are made to scrub anti-Nazi slogans off the street in front of jeering crowds.
Terrible.
Britain protests impotently, as does France, though in the midst of the crisis, distracted by the fall of yet another government. The only power that might have meaningfully intervened is Italy. It was Mussolini, after all, who'd prevented Hitler's attempted annexation in 1934.
But now they're friends.
But the two dictators are now firm allies, as both continue to build their new empires.
It is my unalterable decision to smash Czechoslovakia by military action in the near future. Why does he hate Czechoslovakia? Munich. Well, I guess because he probably sees it as like part German. I mean, it used to be part of the Austria-Hungary Empire, right? And then it became Czechoslovakia, but yeah, okay.
By May 1938, the United States is sufficiently alarmed by Japan's attack on China and the threat of war in Europe to begin rearming. That month, Congress passes the Second Vinson Act to increase the strength of the US Navy by 20%. Hitler, meanwhile, turns to his next target, as outlined in the Hossbach Memorandum of 1937, Czechoslovakia. More than 3 million ethnic Germans live in areas of the country they call the Sudetenland. Many want union with Germany. Hitler intends to launch a short war to bring these Sudeten Germans within the Reich, while also blooding his new military and destroying Czechoslovakia, which he regards as a fake nation created by the Versailles Treaty. In theory, France and the Soviet Union have pledged to defend Czechoslovakia from attack. Britain's position is more vague. The country is still woefully unprepared for conflict, and its public will not stomach war with Germany over a pro-German region of Czechoslovakia. Instead, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain hopes stern warnings and the threat of intervention will be enough to deter Hitler from attack.
Bro, it's been like years and years of stern warning. Don't do it. I mean, if you do it, I won't do anything, but don't do it.
In May, there are reports of a German military build-up on the Czech frontier. The rumors are false, but trigger a major war scare across Europe. Civilians in cities expect to be bombed within hours of war being declared. Military experts have predicted as much. Many will soon be issued masks in case poison gas is used.
I can't even imagine as a little kid, right? You you're being told that war might break out at any moment, and you're being taught how to put on a fucking gas mask, and every day you have to live, you know, not being sure of when it's going to happen. I can't imagine.
The crisis rolls on that summer as the German military prepares for Case Green, an attack on Czechoslovakia scheduled for early October. Hitler has already guessed that Britain and France will not intervene to save the Czechs.
I mean, guessed. There's already been like multiple precedents over the last few years, right? Where they didn't intervene as Hitler was doing his bullshit.
Just in case, he gives orders to strengthen Germany's western frontier defences, the Westwall, and to speed up U-boat and battleship production. But several German generals remain deeply alarmed by Hitler's plan. They warn Hitler that if the French do intervene, Germany's western defences will be overrun in weeks. General Beck, chief of the...
I mean, that's a good question. Not that I know much of like army stuff, but we know what happens with like my country, France, right? You know, we get overrun pretty fast, but it's more about, you know, the superiority in like blitzkrieg and, you know, vehicles that Germany had, right? So I wonder if France had attacked at this point. I mean, it's only like a year before the actual start of the full conflict. Well, not really, because I guess it starts with Poland. Like the stuff with France is even later, but nonetheless, I wonder if like, you know, if France had attacked, how would that play out? You know, I mean, obviously, like there's so many what if, right, over the last like over all the 30s. You know, what if France, Russia, Britain had done anything to stop Germany from like, you know, getting stronger again? Like, what if, you know? I guess World War II would be not a thing. It would have been, you know, there would have been a conflict, but it would be, I don't know, like the Russo-French, British, German war or something, and it would have been like maybe a quick thing and stopped the bigger madness that happened.
General Staff resigns. He will later become a leading plotter against Hitler.
The idea that safety can be purchased by throwing a small state to the wolves is a fatal delusion. Churchill, I knew it. Right? I mean, it's obvious, right? I mean, you know, it's not gonna stop at just one country.
By September, German forces really are mobilizing on the Czech border. In speeches, Hitler falsely accuses the Czechs of abusing and terrorizing Sudeten Germans, an intolerable outrage that he will end.
Deutschland nicht bereit ist, dem Leid und Leben einer Summe von 3,5 Millionen Volksgenossen gegenüber gleichgültig zu sein und an ihrem Unglück keinen Anteil mehr zu nehmen.
Always the fucking excuse.
President of Czechoslovakia, pleads for British, French and Soviet security guarantees. The Czechs are massively outnumbered by the Germans, but have strong defenses in the west.
I mean, what do you expect? It's been a country for like barely 20 years at this point.
And will fight if they are supported by their allies. Instead, Britain and France ignore Soviet offers of cooperation and tell Benesch he must make major concessions to Hitler to save Europe from war. But there is no concession Benesch can make that will pacify Hitler or the Sudeten Germans who stoke the crisis on his behalf. With Hitler apparently intent on war, Neville Chamberlain takes an unprecedented step. Sidelining the French, he flies to Germany himself to meet Hitler at his Bavarian mountaintop retreat, the Berghof. He is determined to resolve the Sudetenland question peacefully and prevent it spiraling into a European war, an outcome dreaded by most in Britain, France, and Germany. Fraught negotiations culminate 2 weeks later in a conference in Munich. Britain, France, Germany, and Italy are represented. Czechoslovakia and the Soviet Union are not.
Okay.
Ultimately,
Why is that? Like, the country in question cannot join? The Soviet Union, okay, maybe, but Czechoslovakia, who it's all about, cannot join the discussion?
Hitler is compelled to back down from his threat of military action. The final agreement cedes the Sudetenland to Germany, with Hitler declaring he has no further demands on Czech territory.
And it's not the worst outcome, I guess?
In the following weeks, both Hungary and Poland take advantage of Czechoslovakia's woes to enforce their own claims. Poland occupies
Classic.
Transalza with its large Polish population, while Hungary reclaims former territory in southern Slovakia.
Stuff like this really makes you think, like, I've never really looked into it, but like, whoever came up with the cutting up of the Austrian Empire, I don't know what they were smoking. Like, I mean, we know that all of this continues for decades, right? Like, the way that so many of the newly individual countries, you know, have like a portion that's a large ethnic population of like the country next over, and yet it's in this country, and it can create conflict, right? You know, especially like in Eastern Europe, right? It's such like, again, maybe there was some logic, but I don't know how they cut it up and why it ended up so messed up.
Chamberlain and French Prime Minister Daladier are welcomed home as heroes, the men who have saved Europe from war.
I mean, they tried. Like, you know, out of all the dumb stuff that they didn't do or didn't try to do anything right for years, at least in this case they tried to do something. So in this case, you know, it's like, I'll give them props. They tried. Too little too late, but you know.
But their policy of appeasement is based on a fatal misreading of Hitler's character and intentions. They hope he will honor the commitments he has made at Munich. They believe he can be contained and deterred by their own rearmament plans, which now gather pace. But in truth, Hitler is infuriated to have been deprived of his little war in Czechoslovakia. And next time, assured of the weakness of Britain and France, he will insist on a military outcome.
Yeah. But on this next, right? Munich is a betrayal that will be its own punishment. Britain and France think they will save themselves from war and revolution at our expense, but they are wrong. Edvard Beneš, president of Czechoslovakia. Yeah, he was right.
For opponents of fascism everywhere, the Munich Agreement is a bitter blow. The disappointment is particularly severe among Republican forces in Spain, who struggle in the civil war against Franco's nationalists. 1938 sees bloody fighting at Teruel, then a nationalist offensive through Aragon that reaches the sea, cutting Republican Spain in two. The Republicans launch a desperate counterattack across the Ebro River, but their armies are decimated in the heaviest fighting of the war.
Oof.
That November, in Paris, a German diplomat is murdered by a Jewish teenager.
Okay.
2 nights later, in Germany, the Nazis respond by instigating a nationwide pogrom. Jews, their businesses, synagogues, and even cemeteries are targeted.
Yeah.
The amount of broken glass
Kristallnacht.
spawns the name Kristallnacht.
And you know, here we go, like this is something that I didn't know. I didn't realize that this all started right after an event in France of all things. I thought this was just, you know, like part of the build-up of what Hitler had been doing toward the Jews, right? And that this was just the day he decided to really put it into action. I didn't realize that there was a spark like that he used as a justification.
Hundreds of Jews are killed. Around 30,000 Jewish men are arrested and held in concentration camps for several weeks. The violence and vandalism is widely reported by foreign journalists. Worldwide, Nazi barbarism is denounced, and the US recalls its ambassador.
Well, but it almost does feel like, you know, like a response to him being stuck with Czechoslovakia, so, you know, he really wanted some violence going on, and, you know, this was going to happen eventually, but yeah.
In East Asia, Japan's invasion of China continues, despite abortive peace talks instigated by the German ambassador. In March, the Japanese parliament passes a state general mobilization law, giving the government almost total control of the economy, industry, and media to meet the needs of war. That spring, there is heavy fighting around Suzhou as the Japanese try to link up their gains and seize control of the vital north-south railway. The fighting is ferocious, with around 1 million soldiers involved.
It's crazy because until the epic history videos about the history of China, right? And I guess now this World War II series, yeah, like, I think, you know, for the most part, I didn't have much understanding of this side of the war, right? You know, when people talk about World War II, I think a lot of people don't even really think about China and Japan and the amount of troops that were fighting over there too. I mean, it's not really true for me, I guess. I'd watched the Time Ghost series about World War II, so I had seen their coverage of it. But even then, again, I feel like in popular culture, whatever, yeah, when people talk about World War II, I mean, a lot of people really don't really realize this side of it. I guess because it is maybe far away, yeah.
In April, the Chinese win their first major victory over the Japanese at Taiyuan. It is a major morale boost, but heavy losses and the threat of encirclement forced the Chinese to withdraw south.
Yep.
The next battle will be fought for Wuhan. To slow the Japanese advance, Chinese leader Chiang Kai-shek makes an astonishingly ruthless decision. He gives the order to open the dikes to deliberately flood the Yellow River basin. The civilian population receives no warning. As a direct consequence, an estimated 900,000 Chinese peasants lose their lives.
Absolutely insane. Like, what can you even say about this? Especially because, again, it's not gonna stop the Japanese. And why did they even think this would work? They can just go around. Like, you just killed 1 million of your own people. Absolutely insane. And also insane that this is like, you know, baby number compared to what Mao will do with the Great Famine, right? But insanity.
By drowning, starvation, or disease, 4 million become refugees. It is the most destructive man-made disaster in history.
Really.
Nor does it save Wuhan. For more than 4 months, the biggest, bloodiest battle of the Sino-Japanese War rages. Nearly 1.3 million troops are sucked into the fighting. The Chinese have superior numbers, but the Japanese have better training and more modern weaponry, including poison gas.
And a tactical use of rock
Losses
crimes.
on both sides, from combat and sickness, are vast and difficult to establish.
I mean,
In October, the Japanese land at Canton and take the city against light resistance. This move severs the route by which approximately 80% of foreign supplies reach nationalist China and its armed forces.
what is Hong Kong doing at this point? Because Hong Kong is still under British rule, right? So do the Japanese just leave it alone?
Also undercuts the strategic value of Wuhan, which finally falls to the Japanese later that month. But the stubborn Chinese defense buys time for Chiang to withdraw his surviving forces west, towards his new capital, Chongqing. Here they are protected by mountain ranges and the vastness of the Chinese interior.
It's big, yeah.
Japan now occupies China's greatest cities and controls an estimated 87% of the country's productive capacity.
Should
But
I
its
stop there?
conquests have come at a huge price in men and resources. And there is no sign of an imminent Chinese surrender. The Imperial Japanese Army is alarmed to find itself facing a military stalemate in a vast country, attacked by nationalist and communist guerrillas, and facing enormous logistical problems. They are desperate to find some means to end the war. Because to the north, they fear they will soon have to face a much more dangerous adversary, the Soviet Union.
It'll be fine. No?
Border tensions have been escalating for years. That summer, fighting erupts at Lake Hassan, leaving hundreds dead on both sides. In 1939, it will be full-scale war.
I mean, it won't be fine. I know
The
it won't
next
be fine.
episode of our World War II series is going to be our most detailed and comprehensive yet. We're covering the slide to war in Europe, the unexpected bombshell of the Nazi-Soviet pact, the quagmire of Japan's invasion of China, and the devastating conquest of Poland. To watch this episode right now, and watch every new episode
already out,
first, head over to Prestige streaming service Nebula.
Don't tease me like that. I can't afford it. I'll just wait patiently. Okay, I guess the rest is mostly sponsor. Alright, well, yeah, I guess that is it for the road to World War II. Next is actual World War II. Very interesting. Again, you know, I knew a good amount, but there's still quite a few things here that I learned. I mean, I guess, you know, something like World War II is, you could spend the rest of your life learning about it, and there's still be stuff that you would not know because it's an infinite subject. You know what I mean? But yeah, very interesting video, as always. I think I learned a good amount, and that is the point, right? Very interesting, as always. But yeah, looking forward to the next one. Looking forward to more American Revolution, or Verdun, or Napoleon, or whatever they touch on. Definitely. Hope you enjoyed the reaction. Like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you guys next time. See you.